Well, it's done, it's been finalized, and the votes are now in. No, I'm not talking about Eurovision and Austria winning. I am talking about the Tajani decree has been finalized with all of the amendments made. Things have been not just stirred up, but they've been shaken, rattled, and rolled. I'm Rafael di Furia, and this is another episode of Not Your Average Globetrotter. Roll the intro. If you're looking for legal details and how everything is going right now, be sure to check out the recent episode of the Italian Citizenship podcast, episode 158, the project that I collaborate with Italian attorney Marco Permunian on. And there you will find a lot of the legal details. I'm going into just kind of some of the discussions around this topic right now. For those who may not have been keeping up with everything going on, the Italian government recently put out an emergency decree. In Italy, an emergency decree pretty much is just as effective as a regular law. I mean, when it's in place for a specific amount of time. It either has to be turned into law or just goes with the wind. But in this case, May 20th of 2025, the Italian Chamber of Deputies spent quite a bit of time discussing this decree and finalizing the decree itself. There was a part of me that had been holding on to some little tiny bit of hope that maybe the usual inefficiency of how things can operate in the country might just save the day. But can you believe it, on one of these occasions when things just run smoothly and are quite efficient, it happens to be to limit Italian citizenship by descent. Until now, there have been very few limits in place for a person to be able to claim Italian citizenship through their ancestry. But now, there is not only a generational limit, but there are some other various details that could come into place. Again, for more about what things are looking like right now, be sure to check out episode 158 of the Italian Citizenship podcast. The good news is that not all hope is lost, that the limit does go up to grandparents, and maybe there would be a residency requirement for some people, and for others, maybe they can just go directly get their Italian citizenship by descent. But for people who might be wanting to know, can they apply through the old rules? There potentially could be some ways. Again, check out that episode of the Italian Citizenship podcast and keep your eyes on that YouTube channel and the podcast, because Marco and I are planning to release an episode that will go into some potential ways that maybe people might be able to use the old rules for citizenship by descent. Everything that we're talking about right now is quite complex, and I am oversimplifying and very much generalizing and glancing over a lot. But really, I do have to say that, again, like I mentioned in a recent episode, that I'm not necessarily surprised that this happened, but I am maybe shocked that it happened so soon. I was thinking maybe one day in the future. I thought there would be more time that people would have to be able to do this. But all of a sudden, an emergency was declared, saying that, in short, again, oversimplifying things, that the system has been bogged down and maybe even abused, and that there were certain fingers that seemed to be pointed towards a certain direction, particularly South America. And of course, online, people have been asking, why is this happening? What's going on? Why would they do this? Who could even think of such a thing? I think there are various potential reasons. I'm not going to say what I think, but some people online have been saying racism, although to me that argument doesn't necessarily make sense, because if we're talking about the same group of people, like maybe xenophobia, or I don't know, whatever kind of word you want to put on it. But there have been people that have been pointing towards abuses made by certain individuals, predominantly from South America. And on top, there happen to be a lot of people in South America who are eligible for Italian citizenship by descent. But then the other day, I believe it was the Financial Times posted an article saying something about the possibility that maybe that the current U.S. administration actually had put some pressure on Italy because they had been finding people who had overstayed their welcome with Italian passports coming from South America. So maybe are individuals from South America somehow kind of at the center of this? Potentially, one way or the other. I mean, for example, there would have to be some potential benefit that maybe Italy would see to putting these restrictions in place to be able to get, I don't know, good relations or whatever it might be that could potentially be perceived with that part of the world. Talking about the US, not South America here. And again, like I mentioned in another recent episode, if we're talking about things on just a social level in Italy, Italians in Italy don't see people from the Italian diaspora as Italian, they maybe would say, yeah, okay, your grandparent, great-grandparent, great-great-great-grandparent would have been. But if your great-great-great-grandparent was, then how on earth would you be Italian? How could you even say such a thing and claim to be one of us? Which in some ways is hilarious, because if you grow up as an Italian American, for example, or maybe even Italian, Brazilian, Australian, whatever, it'll often be pointed out, oh, you're Italian. People will call you Italian. Oh, are you Italian? If they see you happen to have an Italian last name. Even in Italy, I've mentioned this plenty of times, that I've had instances where people said, oh, how did you get that name? Di Furia. Wow, that's a very Italian name. I mean, like, my family had to come from somewhere. It's not like I just went on to some random band name generator online and say, hey, that's a cool name. I mean, I will say that I do think my name is actually kind of cool, and I'm grateful for that. I mean, I'm really going on a tangent here. Outside of Italy, kind of sounds cool, but once you translate it into English as well, like, it's kind of a cool name. I'm grateful for the name that I happen to have. And even in Italy, it's not necessarily that common, but it's an Italian name nonetheless. But again, this is the thing. It's an Italian name. My family had to have come from somewhere. It just so happens that that name happened to come from this country. There are ties, genetic ties. There are cultural ties. There are stories passed down from generation to generation that tie my family back to its roots in the boot. But to get off of that tangent there, I do have to say my heart really goes out to those who have not been able to get their citizenship by descent recognized yet. I mean, it's horrifying. It is absolutely, in my opinion, disgusting that it's not going to be possible for so many. I mean, granted, there could potentially be individuals who might be able to still get their citizenship by descent, potentially through the old rules, but there also will be people who could make some type of claim through their grandparent, whether it's directly through recognition processes, Italian citizenship by descent, or if they have to actually reside in Italy. It depends on their circumstances and their family line. And again, not going into this episode, more info will be in the Italian Citizenship podcast, episode 158. So it's not that the door is completely shut. It's still kind of propped open for the time being. But to be completely frank, honestly, having said it so many times for so many years, that the door had been open for so long that it might not remain open forever, and how much I encouraged people to go and do it immediately and not waste any time. I mean, in person, we're talking about probably hundreds of people, online, thousands, tens of thousands of people. And having seen the possibility that one day the door might close, at least to some extent, I honestly can say, if at some point in the future more restrictions might be put in place, it wouldn't surprise me. It really would not. I'm not saying that they will, and I'm not saying it's going to happen anytime soon. I'm just simply saying that if it would be a claim through just your parents and not even going up to the grandparents, that wouldn't be surprising to me at some point in the future. And so I'm going to say, for those who still can get Italian citizenship by descent, there's no time like the present. Get going now. Don't wait, because the door is still propped open for the time being. How long that's going to last is an unknown. Maybe it'll stay like this for decades. Impossible to say. And for those who might be able to be eligible under the old rules or figure out some way to challenge this, I personally think it's worthwhile getting on that. Because if you look at it, you can really say that there are so many things that have to do with this that are just completely absurd. And I do believe, from what I've heard, that there are going to be plenty of people who have some arguments to be made to be able to get citizenship still. It's not going to be the same amount that it was before, but if you've already been getting things going in one way or the other, then definitely make sure that you are getting prepared for any potential possibility of being able to challenge this. Because if you're thinking that you would like to call Italy home, and regardless of whatever is going on now, that Italy is still your dream, to be connected to it, who knows what could happen. So if you have that option, my opinion, really, don't waste any time. But on a completely different note, I do have to say this is all very strange. Again, like, things just happen to be so efficient with how this was done. Like, this was executed very, very well. Even if maybe there are parts that were not totally legal or maybe not totally constitutional. That's going to be for a constitutional court to decide. I mean, I have to take my hats off that in some ways there was a brilliance to it. Like I mentioned in my other episode recently, that there are other ways that have tried to attack citizenship by descent, and this is the only one that has worked. Again, though, there are things to me, as somebody who follows what's going on in Italy and the Italian government, that just simply don't make sense. There's a logic that is not logical to me. For example, Italy seems to have a population decline, an aging population, and there are plenty of villages that are ghost towns all over the country. It's not like it's just a couple here and there. There are bunches of them. Even many young Italians see that they could potentially have a life abroad that would be much better for them than remaining in the country. So when you're talking about an aging population and a brain drain from the country as well, I mean, you have to think about, okay, some practical aspects there, but if it would be best for the country to have more people and to bring more money into the country, and for example, something that's been cited in this whole debacle, this emergency decree, is that the complaint came up that there haven't been enough workers and that it gets in the way of actually giving services to those who already have their citizenship recognized. And so here's the thing. At the same time as this emergency decree, there was also the proposal of putting a specific singular office in place to take care of all these citizenship by descent requests. And so if you're going to put a whole new office together, then why not just put everything through that office and keep things the same as they are? Why not make the cost of the process worthwhile from a financial perspective, that it not only covers the cost, but even potentially could be profitable for the Italian government? I mean, we're not talking about a small number of people here who would be potentially eligible for this. And okay, even if the office weren't such a long-term project, but maybe a 10-year thing that you would get everybody through and say, hey, this is the cutoff date. You need to make sure you submit your application then. And then on top of that, not necessarily have to have in-person meetings, but just simply that a person has to send X, Y, or Z way of identifying themselves and giving whatever information that the Italian government might want into place. Why not just have a more streamlined system? Why not put that into place if there's already a proposal to make a whole new office? And of course, if the system is bogged down, and of course, if they don't have the resources for it, there are ways to make that happen. It's not impossible to do. And of course, if the whole point of doing this is to make sure that people have actual connections with the country, why not make it attractive to those people to come back and to live in the country, to bring investment into the country? Why not make some sort of something that could be beneficial, not just to Italy, but also to the individuals who have this strong connection? People in the Italian diaspora very often are very passionate about their roots. Maybe not everybody, and maybe it does fade away after a few generations, but I mean, to limit things just to the grandparents, I'd say maybe it's not as stringent as some citizenship by descent procedures and rules that you might find around the world. However, it's gone from being one of the most open citizenship by descent systems in the world to potentially even being now one of the most restrictive. There are others, I believe it's Slovenia or Slovakia, one of the two, that has a citizenship by descent program in place, but you have to be a young person doing it. I think you can only do it up until the age of 26 or 36 or something along those lines, that it's even more restricted, but no generational limit there. But I mean, if we're talking about this, if we're talking about a country that wants to thrive, survive, and push forward into the future, alternatives really need to be looked at. And by closing off so many people from the country that have a connection in one way or the other, even if it's just purely emotional already, I might call that a big loss. I think there would be Italians, though, who would say, well, they're not really Italians anyway, so what does it matter? So I don't know. It's a tough one. And what also I can't help but notice, and I'm always talking about, it's horrible that citizenship by descent and citizenship by naturalization are always brought up in the same conversations, but I'm going to bring it up in this conversation because it just so happens there's about to be a referendum on lowering the amount of time that you actually have to spend in Italy to be able to make a request to become a citizen from 10 years down to 5 years, where other countries, including the UK, have now been taking it from 5 years and putting it up to 10 years. I believe even Portugal is now, after their election, talking about taking it from 5 years and putting it up to 10 years. And now Italy is talking about the possibility of bringing it from 10 down to 5. I'm not going to share what my personal opinions are on that topic, and maybe it's not so difficult to guess. It's just very interesting to me that this happens to be happening all around the same time. I'm not calling conspiracy theories here, but like, man, things look really, really interesting right now. Anyway, I'm Rafael de Furia. This has been another episode of Not Your Average Globetrotter. Thank you so much to those of you who helped to make these episodes possible on a monthly basis through rafaeldefuria.com/Patreon or patreon.com/RafaelDeFuria. And thank you to those of you who help with the one-time donations here on YouTube through the thanks button, the super thanks button, as well as rafaeldefuria.com/support, as well as thank you to those of you who partake in the conversation down in the comment section below on YouTube under the episode. If you are listening to this on any of the podcasting platforms, feel free to come on over to YouTube and take part in the conversation. But of course, again, I'm Rafael de Furia. This has been another episode of Not Your Average Globetrotter. Stay safe and healthy out there, and I'll see y'all next time. Later.